The time has officially come. I am going to crochet the On Fire sweater by Made in the Moment. I have had this pattern for maybe about a year and I have been too intimidated by tapestry crochet to actually attempt it. So the time has finally come and I'm going to make myself do this pattern because I really want it, obviously. I want to crochet it. I'm just a frightened little baby. Also, hello, if you don't know me, my name is Rajan, aka Not Half Bad Crochet, and I post a bunch of crochet content like tutorials, vlogs, day in the lives, project videos. So if you like watching crochet content, you like to hear me yap, please give me a little subscribe, drop me a like, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. So I'll put a picture up here of what the On Fire sweater is. It's a really fun and cool tapestry crochet sweater that forms the picture of like flames coming up from the bottom of the sweater. And like I mentioned, I've had this pattern for quite some time. It's a very simple tapestry in terms of it's only got 3 colours. I don't think it's particularly complex, and that's not me being shady on the pattern, by the way. I'm just, you know, stating facts. It's a relatively simple tapestry crochet project, but I've only ever done one tapestry crochet piece ever, and it was 2 colours including the background, and it was very simple, and it wasn't, you know, the entire sweater. It was just like a small amount on the front. It was my Uzma Kappa sweater, which is from Monsters University. I did do a whole vlog on how I crocheted that sweater, and I'll link it in the description if you want to check that out. And the main things that kind of intimidate me about doing tapestry crochet is the fact I have to count. It's the fact I have to concentrate on every single row, on every single stitch, because for me, I personally crochet with like a film on in the background or watching TV. I am like talking to my partner, or you know, I'm doing it kind of in the background of doing other things, and I like to crochet where I just kind of let my hands do the work and my brain kind of switches off. And don't get me wrong, I love tapestry crochet. I think it's very cool. I think it looks amazing. I think people who do it well are very, very talented. And like I mentioned, I've only ever done it once before, so this seems scary. But the one I did before, I did not buy a pattern for. I did the chart myself, so the fact that all of the work has kind of been done for me is very, very appealing to me. So here is my chosen color palette. I'm kind of sticking to the colors of the original piece that Aspen did, and I'm gonna do black as like my background color, and then for the flames I'm gonna do this bright pink and then this baby pink, and I think I'm gonna do like the border of the flames with the baby pink and the kind of bulk of the flames with the brighter pink. And in terms of the yarn I'm using, the bright pink is the Signet Pato in color 970 Candy. It's a really lovely bright pink. The black that I'm using is the Majestic Aran in the color 2534, and then the baby pink is the Majestic Aran also in the color 2536. And I know obviously I'm using a DK and 2 Arans, but like I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. Worst case scenario, I can just double strand this, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. So to mentally prepare myself, I did and have scanned over the pattern. I mean, I scanned it over when I bought it, which was fucking ages ago, but I scanned it over again, and it seems like a really, really good and easy to follow pattern. What I love about this pattern is easy to fucking read, okay? It's in a normal font on a white background. There's none of this handwriting font bullshit. There's no like pretty aesthetic, let me do everything on Canva and add a bunch of weird pictures and have a colorful background. I can actually read it. I can actually read the pattern. And don't get me wrong, those patterns are beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, lovely, but I can't read your handwriting, okay? I can't read your handwriting. I can't read a light colored font on a bright colored background, okay? Some pattern designers I think need to do some accessibility work when it comes to visual stuff. Also, as a little flex, my patterns are all black text on a white background, FYI. So if you've ever been worried about the accessibility of any of my patterns, they are all very easy to read, and I use one font, which is Arial, throughout the entire thing. Anyway, I digress. Great pattern visually, I can actually read it. Great start. It's also size inclusive, so the charts that they have provided are I think like 100 stitches wide, which I think would go up to like a 6x or I want to say like a 5x or a 6x, so very inclusive, which is another great thing to see. So the way that they have written it is also extremely easy to read for me, because sometimes I get a little bit like confused and discombobulated when it comes to written patterns, so I am personally finding it quite simple to read. And what I have gathered is that they basically want you to do the ribbing first, then it's the kind of front panel, then you obviously replicate it for the back panel, and then you do your sleeves. So for me personally, I actually like adding my ribbing afterwards, so I'm not going to start with the ribbing. I also am pretty sure on the pattern it says to do your tapestry in half double crochet, but I prefer doing it in single crochet. So I will be making those quite small amendments just to kind of fit my personal preference, and so if those things affect the final pattern, that's on me, that's not on the designer, FYI. I am really excited to kind of get started on this pattern. I'm a little bit scared, I'm a little bit intimidated, I'm a little bit frightened, but I'm gonna be brave and I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna document it to kind of hold myself accountable, because otherwise I will never fucking do it. So let's get cracking. Okay, I have made a start, and this is a mixing bowl that I've decided to put all of my bobbins in because it was getting a bit crazy. And for me personally, I crochet on the sofa. I don't really crochet like at a desk. I think when you're doing tapestry work, it would be better and good for you to crochet somewhere where you can kind of put the bobbins like in front of you, or like there's space to put the bobbins. I don't do that, and I haven't done that, so my bobbins are all in this bowl, which is probably not the most like organized that I could be, but whatever. Anyway, I've done I think like 7 rows, and don't talk about the ends, don't talk about the ends, don't talk about how that yarn looks tangled. Okay, we're not going to focus on that. All right, everybody calm down. Here is where it's at so far. Obviously it looks fucking cracked because, you know, I'm barely in it, and also I don't know if it's like me, but I'm like optical illusioning, gaslighting myself, because you know, so obviously this part of the pink is the flame, the black is the background, and the baby pink is kind of the border of the flame. And so because I started with the pink, I'm looking at the black as if the black is going to form the flame. So I'm looking at it like, this looks crazy, but then I need to remember to kind of switch my focus that the pink is actually the flame. So I think it's just gonna take some time, you know, and I think once I get to a certain point, I'll kind of be like, oh yes, now I kind of see the flame forming in that sense. But overall, it's going swimmingly. I think it's going very, very well. The pattern and the chart is extremely easy. I did print it off, and my printer is not very good. So, and I'm fucking blind. I'm not actually, but I don't have great eyesight, and I usually work in basically the dark. So I'm struggling to see the little squares on the printer that I've done, but they're not like that on the computer. So I think I might just bring my laptop into the living room so I can see the squares. But that's a me problem, that's a me problem, it's not a pattern problem. Anyway, going swimmingly so far. Only like 7 or 8 rows, I think. The fact that I'm using the Aaron's with a DK is absolutely fine. I think, yeah, I have no negative things to say. It's going well. This is kind of how, dare I put it against my body? Dare I do this? Maybe, let's try. So this is kind of how it fits around my body, and I am going to be blocking it just because I think tapestry crochet does benefit from a block, especially if you're carrying the yarn or you're using floats. I'm using bobbins, obviously, hence the bowl. I am going to block it just because I think it will sit nicer. So I'm going for a kind of not oversized fit, a pretty accurate fit. I want it to be kind of like waist height, I guess, or waist length, let's say. Is kind of, it just fits perfectly over my bust currently, and then obviously with a little block it will kind of stretch out a tiny bit, so it's not going to be like skin tight around my titties, but it will be not baggy either, not super baggy and loose. But anyway, this looks crazy. This is my progress, and I will obviously keep you posted. Now I'm looking at it in the camera, I'm like, oh, I see the flames. You know, I see the flames, but when I look at it, I'm like, oh, the black is the flame, you know. Anyway, optical illusion, and it's going very well. Also, just move that mess out of the way. This is the Wafflin On Cardigan, which if you saw my latest vlog, I vlogged the entire process of me crocheting this cardigan, and I do have a video pattern for it. It's a really beautiful top down, like high neck cardigan, and it's so fun. It's got like a really nice stretch to it, super easy, and I have done a video pattern, so for all of my visual learners, it's going to be good for you. So if you would like the pattern, or if you would like to see the vlog, I will link them both in the description. But yeah, I wear it all the time. I've worn it so much already. It's actually probably not that good that I've worn it that many times. Oh my god, please, I am talking. That's so rude. Anyway, I'm going to carry on. Goodbye. Okay, a little progress update. I think I'm on like row 18, something like that. This is how we're looking so far. I'm going to very tentatively turn it around. But this is how it's going, and it actually looks so cool. I definitely need to turn the lamp on because I'm struggling to see the black stitches a little bit, even though it's light outside. This corner of my living room is quite dark, but it actually looks so fun. I think in the camera it's easier for me to see the pink as the flames, and it's looking really good. I can kind of like really see them forming now, especially like this part where it's going to kind of separate into like, you know, a toothed flame. Oh, it looks so fun. I'm really enjoying it. I am losing my mind a little bit because I'm having to count 50 million times, but that's a me problem because I'll count how many squares and then I'll go to crochet it and then I'll forget what number it was. So, or I get paranoid that I've done the wrong number, so I'm just double checking basically, but I'm doing that pretty regularly. So it's probably taking me a little bit longer than normal, but it's going really well. And I think it's at row 43 where it's like basically all black, and that means the tapestry part has ended. So I have a long way to go. I'm like, what, just under halfway? Yeah, I'd say, yeah, just under halfway through the actual tapestry portion, and then obviously I've got to make it into a sweater, into a panel. But yeah, it's going good. I'm really pleased. It's pretty simple. I am dealing with quite a significant amount of like knotting, which is not the best, but it's not a problem right now. So I think I'm just gonna like deal with it until it becomes an issue, and if it becomes an issue, I'll just cut it, which is fine. It's obviously not ideal, but it's fine. And my tension is looking really good. I find sometimes with tapestry stuff, I tend to do things a little bit tighter. I'm going to continue. I have been watching The Sex Lives of College Girls season 3. I'm not really the biggest fan of this season so far, if I'm being so honest. I think I'm on like episode 6 or episode 7. It's okay. I mean, obviously Renee Rapp not being in it anymore is kind of disappointing, but like understandable. And I feel like the characters that they've put in to kind of replace her are not as good as her character or like, you know, her performance. Anyway, I'm kind of indifferent towards it. I'm going to finish watching the season, but I don't know if I will be watching season 4 depending on how the season ends, because honestly it's gonna have to really like pick up its game for me to want to watch any future seasons. That's just my thoughts. That's my thoughts. Anyway, I'm going to continue. It's going well. I think I need to have a little food break shortly. I'm going to continue with this. It is going incredibly well. So I finished the actual tapestry part, like the, you know, the graph part of one of the panels. Oh my god, this looks so cool. As I was kind of working up, it got a little bit easier to see the flames forming, but from a distance as well, it looks really, really cool. And even close up, like my stitches are relatively neat. It's going really, really well. I've had absolutely no issues with the graph or the pattern. It's extremely easy to follow. I'm not sure if I'm going to turn this into the back piece or the front piece, because you know when you're like, the first pancake is always not as good. I'm kind of tempted to make this the back panel because I think the second one I do is going to be better. But not like, I don't think this is bad by any means. And as I've mentioned, this is only the second tapestry crochet project that I've ever done. So it's been a lot more complex. Even though there's 3 colours, I did have to end up having quite a few bobbins, which was fine by me. And like, I didn't have any issues with it getting tangled or like, you know, the yarn getting all mixed up. It did obviously tangle, but like it was still workable. And then like kind of about halfway through, I just spent a little bit of time untangling everything, and it was totally fine. So I didn't kind of, because sometimes when yarn gets really tangled it stresses me out a little bit, but it was actually fine, so no issues there. And I think my only gripe, and also anything negative that I say about this, is almost definitely a me thing. It's nothing to do with the actual pattern or the graphs or the way the pattern is written, anything to do with the pattern, okay? It's mostly me. So my only gripe, which again is completely a me thing, is that obviously with the kind of outline of the flames, you're typically only doing like one stitch, so it didn't actually feel like I was, for the graph part anyway, it didn't actually feel like I was crocheting. It just felt like I was changing stitches every 5 seconds, and I find that to be annoying. But obviously that's like the whole point of tapestry crochet, is to change your stitches really often. But now I'm realizing maybe I don't like that, and that's fine, that's totally okay, because I've noticed that when I was crocheting this and I was kind of getting closer to finishing the graph part, I was like trying to speed through it, and I was trying to like get it done, because I was like, I just want to get the tapestry part done so I can just crochet like just the black. And then I was kind of like, oh, that's actually the entire point of this project. So I'm trying to like adjust my mindset a little bit, because I think like, especially yesterday when I was nearing the end of the graph, I was like, oh, let's just get it done, you know? So yeah, I need to just adjust my mindset ever so slightly, which is totally fine. I am not somebody who likes to count, and I think the fact I have to concentrate basically the whole time when I'm doing the tapestry is not like my favorite thing in the world. But again, that is definitely a me problem. Also, if I'm talking a little bit weird, I have had like a really awful toothache, so I'm trying not to make it worse. I think I've been pronouncing words a little bit differently than normal, so if I sound different, that is why. But yeah, it's going really good. I'm going to continue crocheting the kind of length of it, and in terms of like where I want it to sit, I think obviously with the ribbing, probably where my current top is sitting actually. So I don't think I'm going to do the ribbing particularly wide, maybe about there. I'm looking in the mirror, which is over there, so I'm probably about like halfway of actually finishing the panel. But it looks really, really good, especially from a distance, and I love that the pink pops so nicely with the black background. But yeah, it's going so good. The back panel is officially finished. It looks so cool. I'm really, really pleased with how it's turned out. Here's a little close-up of the actual tapestry part. It looks so good. I'm really impressed. Yeah, this is fucking cool. I'm really, really pleased. I think this is gonna look awesome. With the back panel, they do advise on the pattern to do some decreases, so you have like, you know, a little area for your ribbing. I am not too bothered about doing that for the back panel, and I couldn't really be asked, if I'm being honest, so I haven't done it for the back panel. I will be doing like a neckline for the front panel, but like I mentioned, any amendments that I make to this pattern that affect the final product are a me problem, not a pattern problem. I don't think it's going to be an issue, because I've crocheted many a sweater in my time, and why does that sound so weird? And whenever I've done like no decreases on the back panel, it's been absolutely fine. So I'm not anticipating that it's going to be an issue. Other amendment that I made, if you remember, is that I'm doing single crochets instead of half double crochets. I don't think that that has negatively affected the tapestry in any way. And the other difference is that I will be doing my ribbing afterwards rather than to start. And again, I have made many a crochet sweater in my time, and I really don't think it's going to negatively impact or affect the final sweater. So I am more than happy to take accountability for the amendments that I've made, because I don't think they're going to be a problem. But in case you want to know, you know, what to expect when you're doing the pattern yourself, if you do the pattern yourself or buy the pattern, that's what to expect. So yeah, back panel finished. Love it. And we're back with the bowl. I have made barely a start on the front panel, and what I've done is that, let me show you. So this part of the tapestry, obviously it goes from this corner over to here, and then there's like another bit of the chart that obviously I didn't do the whole thing, because the whole thing I think is like 100 stitches wide. So obviously I stopped up until I got to like, you know, the point that the size that I needed. So what I've done for the front panel is that I've gone the other way, so that I've started on like, so say if this whole thing is the chart, I've started on this side of the chart, and I'm going up here, and I'm gonna stop like, you know, here or wherever wherever I need to stop basically. So I've kind of gone the other side of the chart, because I don't know, I just wanted to. I kind of wanted to have like a slightly different flame pattern for the front panel, so it was like slightly different front and back. It wasn't like, you know, identical. Yeah, there's no other reason than I wanted to, and I think it will look fun, and I think it will look cool. So yeah, here is where I'm at with the front panel so far. Like I said, I'm very, very early into it. I think I've done like 10 rows. I think I'm on my 11th row. But yeah, it looks fun. Looks really cool. And it's actually been a breeze, you know. I've not had any issues. I don't foresee there being any issues. I was looking at the pattern and the sleeves are worked in the round, which isn't my favourite thing to do, particularly with tapestry, but I don't think, maybe I'll do panels, I don't know, because as well the sleeve chart is only 50 stitches long, and I'm pretty sure the circumference of my arm is going to be more than 50 stitches. My arms are quite wide because I'm strong, but I think my arms are going to surpass the 50 stitches of the panel, so I don't think I'll be able to kind of do of the chart, sorry, so I don't think I'll be able to do the sleeves as panels, which would be my preference, so I may have to do it in the round, but I'll figure it out when I get there, because I don't mind doing sleeves in the round, but I think with tapestry it might get a little bit complicated and I don't know if I can be bothered. Other than that, it's going great. I'm really enjoying the process. Bobbins haven't gotten too crazy in terms of tangling and stuff, and yeah, I'm just gonna carry on. So with the actual chart, I think I mentioned that I was struggling to see the lighter colors, because on the actual chart that they've given, they've done where I've got the pink, they've got like a pale kind of lilac, and then they have a dark purple for the baby pink that I have, and then a black for the background. And on the chart that I printed off, I thought it was because of my shitty printer, but it was quite hard to kind of see in between each square, because it's like a white line that basically separates each square, which is each stitch, and I was struggling a little bit on the printout version that I had. So I was like, okay, let me start this with my laptop basically, and having my laptop in front of me, and it was still quite difficult, I can't lie, because obviously it is like a pale lilac colour with a white to contrast it, so it's still quite difficult for me to see each stitch. What I would have loved is if there was maybe like a link to Stitch Fiddle, because I feel like with Stitch Fiddle it's a little bit easier because it highlights the row that you're doing and kind of zooms it in, and so it's a bit easier for me to keep track of what row I'm on, as well as then be able to count the stitches even if those stitches are light. Again, I think this is definitely like a me issue. I think if you've maybe got any like visual impairments, you may struggle with reading the chart, but that's my only kind of feedback, I guess, that I would like to change so far. Or maybe if they just did the chart and changed the light color to a more contrasting color so you can actually see each square a little bit more clearly. But yeah, like I said, I think that's a me problem. I think if you have any sort of visual impairments, you may struggle, but it's easy to overcome for me. I also don't have like an iPad, I don't have like Procreate or anything like that, so I can't like, you know, physically cross off each row. I'm just doing it from like the PDF or the physical printout version. Just, you know, some feedback that might be helpful, who knows. Okay, front panel is officially done. I think it looks so cool. I really love how it's turning out. And yeah, so all I've got to do is connect the front and the back panel, and then I can start working on my sleeves. I do think I'm gonna work in the round, but I'm unsure how to do it, because like obviously I'm going to read the pattern, but it basically works, you're working the flame pattern from the top to the bottom, whereas for the panels you've been doing bottom to top. So I think I need to obviously read that part of the pattern just to make sure that I am, you know, following the correct instructions, and then just kind of measure like how long I want the sleeves to be and how long the graph is going to be, because I obviously want to make sure it marries up with the graph so that the flames are kind of on the end of the wrist and they go up, and then the rest is black for the sleeve. But yeah, it's going really well. I'm so pleased with how it's turning out. My tooth is still giving me some problems, so if I'm talking weird, that is probably why, and it is quite difficult for me to talk without it kind of triggering more pain, if that makes sense, which is very difficult for me because if you know me, I love to yap, and I'm sure I probably will, but through the pain, just purely because I like to talk, man. I'm very sorry. I just got to deal with it, basically. So yeah, I'm going to connect them and then work on the double check the pattern first and then work on the sleeves. But it's going really, really well. I'm really thoroughly enjoying it. And I found with this part of the panel, the front panel, I wasn't kind of like trying to speed through the tapestry a little bit. I think like where I'm so used to being able to multitask when I crochet and like watch a movie or watch TV or talk to my partner or whatever, I'm able to kind of keep my concentration elsewhere whilst I'm crocheting. Obviously with tapestry, because you are counting a lot, I can't personally do that. I feel like I have to very much focus on the counting and focus on, you know, the actual number of stitches I'm doing, blah blah blah, and like, you know, focusing on making sure I've crossed out that row and I know what row I'm on, that kind of thing. And so for me, I think it's just like a slight adjustment that I've had to make. I think with the back panel I was like trying to still crochet in the same way, but I think what I've learned is that when I do tapestry crochet, I just need to kind of adjust the way that I crochet. Like I can't really crochet and watch like a really in-depth TV show. Like I think with this project, which has actually come at like quite a good time, I've been watching a lot more like comfort movies and like animated movies and stuff that's like quite easy to watch, which is quite good because obviously where my tooth is like causing me quite a lot of issues, I'm feeling a little bit sorry for myself. So I've been watching a lot more kind of like kids movies and animated movies, and like I've been watching The Great North, which is just like very chill and like you don't really have to concentrate as much. So I think doing this project whilst I'm kind of mentally not wanting to concentrate anyway is working quite well because it's still keeping my mind stimulated, but I am kind of forcing myself to clock off a little bit mentally elsewhere outside of crocheting. Does that make any sense? I don't even know if that makes any sense, but hey, it makes sense to me and it makes sense to my brain. But that's just a very long way to say it's going well. I am going to be continuing. Okay, it's looking really, really good. I think this is so cute. So obviously I have been working on sleeve number 1, and the way that we did the sleeves was working in the round. So obviously joined up the sides of both panels of the sweater, then worked in the round. And then the thing is with the chart, so I wanted to do really, really loose baggy sleeves. I don't like tight sleeves. I tend to get quite overstimulated when I have very tight sleeves. So I have quite baggy sleeves. You can kind of see there is my arm, so it's quite a lot looser than my actual arm. And so I think my stitch count was around like 70 stitches, and the chart of the sleeves is around 50 stitches across. And they advise on the pattern to obviously seam up the sides, start working in the round, and that if your kind of stitch number is more than 50, to then decrease until you get to 50, or until you know, decrease to a comfortable size basically. And then that's when you start the tapestry, which actually really, really helped because obviously, like I said, I was around 70, so I was decreasing for about 20 rows. And then when I hit when I hit 50 as my stitch count, that's when I started the tapestry. And in terms of kind of the length of where I wanted the tapestry to start, which is probably, you know, here's my elbow, probably just past my elbow, like basically my forearm, it's actually pretty perfect. So it's worked out really, really well for me. And I love the kind of flame pattern on the sleeve. I think it looks really, really cool. In terms of working in the round and doing the tapestry in the round, I'm not the biggest fan of that. It wasn't bad by any means, but it was definitely just like a little bit of an adjustment because I've never worked in the round for anything tapestry wise. So I think it was just a bit of an adjustment in terms of how I place my yarn, and when I kind of turn my piece, like not to kind of basically twist all of the bobbins around the sleeve, which is what I did right at the start. And I think obviously where you're working from the top down, you're basically starting with a bajillion bobbins and then moving down to kind of lose the bobbins as you're moving down to only get your one solid colour. So I think obviously the other side, I've started from the bottom with just you know, one solid colour, maybe like the odd bobbin, and then we increase the number of bobbins, and then we decrease the number of bobbins until we get to the background. So it's kind of felt a little bit different. Yeah, it's not bad by any means. And once again, like I've said, I am not slating the pattern or the way it was written or the design or anything like that. This is just, you know, my experience on how this is going, and that was not my favourite part, which is fine. I survived ultimately, it's okay. Obviously the shape is looking a little bit wild because I started with a very baggy sleeve, I started decreasing, and then I've done, you know, the actual tapestry part, so it's a bit kind of not stiff, but like it's not got the best drape right now, which is totally fine. I am okay with that because I am going to block it, I'm going to wet block it, and I just think that will just help loosen everything up and relax all the fibres and stuff. But in terms of the length of the sleeve, I think I'm probably going to do maybe like 3 or 4 more rows for the end of the sleeve, and then I will work on the ribbing. But yeah, it's turning out really, really good. And in terms of the fit and the length of the actual body piece, so if I kind of, because I've joined up my sleeve bit on my other side, if I kind of join up this side, it's kind of a very nice boxy fit, which was what I was going for. The length is actually pretty good because then when I have my ribbing, it will kind of sit just on my like lower stomach, just on my hips, which is exactly what I wanted, so that works out quite well. And the neckline is probably a little bit wider than I would have liked. I was a bit lazy when I was doing the neckline, if I'm being honest, because I basically did it and held it up against myself, and I was like, yeah, this is fine, and I didn't actually like get up and measure it or like find a sweater that I liked the neckline of. I just kind of guessed. So that's on me, but that's okay because obviously we're putting some ribbing around the neckline, and I can just cinch it in a little bit if it kind of feels a little bit too wide. It's looking really good. I'm really pleased. I'm very excited, and I'm looking forward to doing some ribbing because it'll feel like I'm actually crocheting rather than just counting and changing yarn every 5 seconds. But yeah, overall, very good. 10 out of 10. Okay, the bottom ribbing is finished. I finished the whole thing because I can't remember if I mentioned it or what my update was, but I started doing the sleeve and then I got a bit bored of doing the sleeve, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the ribbing, and it looks so good with the ribbing. It just kind of looks like the flames are kind of a little bit more connected as well, which is quite cool. It just elongates the flames a little bit because obviously where I didn't start with the ribbing, it just looked like the flames were quite short and almost like they were coming from nowhere sort of thing. So it looks quite cool that it's like, you know, coming up from the bottom. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how it's going. I'm going to be working on sleeve number 2 today, and I've got quite a bit. I literally only did like 3 or 4 rows. I've got quite a bit of the sleeve to do before I actually reach the tapestry part, so I'm now on the kind of decreasing part, and yeah, it's going really, really well. I have the day off work today, so I just plan on doing some crocheting. Hopefully I kind of make it to the tapestry part, and then tomorrow I can get the tapestry done and maybe finish off sleeve number 2. But yeah, I don't anticipate it taking me too much longer, but it's going really, really well. I'm loving it. I finished it. It's finished. It looks so good. It looks so good. I'm so pleased. I am so pleased with how it's turned out. It looks so good. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. Okay, let me calm down. All right, so I finished it yesterday evening. I just finished off the neckline ribbing and obviously sleeve number 2. And for the neckline ribbing, I think I mentioned that my I think I did my neckline quite wide because I obviously did it quite wide and then I decreased as well as I went, like kind of making it more angular, which was fine. And I think I mentioned as well that I was just being a little bit lazy when I was doing the neckline, and I didn't really kind of like measure it all that well. I was just kind of like holding it up to myself and was like, yeah, this will do. So with the neckline ribbing, I just kind of tightened it up and cinched it in a little bit so it wasn't as kind of open in the neckline, which I actually much prefer. I think it's like high enough where I don't feel like it's slipping off my shoulders, and it's high enough that it will keep me warm, but I don't feel like it's like suffocating my neck, which is perfect. Obviously the sleeves went really, really well. I just finished it off. Finished off the tapestry, did the ribbing, and it obviously matches the other sleeve. They are super, super comfortable, and I'm so glad I went for like a more baggy sleeve. And in terms of the fit, this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. The idea for this sweater and for kind of the times that I want to wear it is like a kind of boxy, loose, baggy kind of sweater that I can just throw on with like a pair of jeans or a pair of leggings if I'm feeling a little bit lazy but want to feel a bit more put together. But also I can kind of like dress it up and style it a little bit more as well if I am in the mood to do so. So this fit is kind of perfect for what I wanted. It's nice and boxy, it's not super tight, and I think I mentioned as well I am going to be blocking it. I'm not going to block it too much to kind of manipulate the shape. I do just really want to relax up the fibres a little bit. I feel like with tapestry sometimes the fibres can kind of, or it can kind of feel a little bit tight, especially the fact that I'm working with an Aran yarn and also a DK, so there's that kind of mixture of weights in the entire piece. So that's mainly why I want to block it, to loosen up and relax those fibres. But I think I just want to kind of stretch out the length ever so slightly, but the sleeves and the sleeve length and stuff is fine, and I don't want to manipulate the shape too much there. If it happens, I'm not too bothered, but I'm not aiming to, if that makes sense. But I think you can kind of tell on the sleeves it's like obviously really baggy here. You can tell where I've decreased, you can tell where the tapestry starts. It's just a little bit kind of stiffer than I would like. I wouldn't say, maybe not stiff, maybe like just not as flowy as I would like. I think you can kind of really tell on the sleeves. But yeah, it feels really good, it feels really comfortable. I love the fit, I love how it's turned out. I also haven't woven in any of the ends yet because I personally like to block my pieces first and then weave in the ends. There's not a rule on weaving in your ends after you've blocked it. I just personally feel that if I'm like, you know, stretching out a piece a little bit, when I've woven in the ends, obviously I've kind of woven them into the fibre. If I'm trying to then stretch or relax out that fibre, it's got a weaved end kind of like in the way, like blocking it a little bit, especially if I've woven in that end quite tightly, if that makes sense. So that's why I prefer weaving in my ends after I have blocked a piece, especially with tapestry, because I feel like everything's a little bit kind of tighter anyway. But yeah, this is kind of what it looks like on the inside. There is obviously going to be many ends to weave in, which I am totally okay with. That's kind of part of the tapestry process, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing, and now I'm going to take it off and go block it. Okay, gonna let it marinate while I set up my blocking mats. I have now just realised that I need a bigger bucket because this kind of barely fits in, and I also am unsure if the black yarn is going to run, like as in if the colour is going to run and if it's going to affect the kind of baby pink, because that's quite a light colour. I think it will be fine because it's acrylic, but yeah, I'm hoping for the best. I've literally now just thought about it, but it's too late either way, so hopefully it's fine. I finished! It looks so good. I am so pleased with how this has turned out. The blocking has really helped just relax everything. I feel like before when I tried it on, as much as it fit me nicely, it just felt a little bit tight, kind of particularly in the flame areas, which is, you know, fair enough. When it comes to tapestry crochet, everything does kind of feel a little bit more restricted because of all of the yarn changes, but it feels so much more relaxed, it feels so much more comfortable. I feel like the blocking has really, yeah, just done it absolute wonders. It looks so good. I feel like the sleeves have blocked out a little bit longer than I would have liked, but I don't think this looks bad in any way. I think I probably could have done my sleeves the tiniest bit shorter. But yeah, like I said, I don't think it's a problem. I think it still looks good, and I like the fact that I still have a nice cinched cuff so that it's not kind of like falling off of my wrists basically. But it looks really good. I am obsessed with the color palette I chose. I love the hot pink contrasting with the black, and I'm really glad that I decided to do the bulk of the flame with the hot pink rather than the baby pink, because I think on Aspen's version they had the lighter color as the main portion of the flame and then the darker, like the darker purple as the outline. But I actually really like it this way as well. So I think as long as your colours are contrasting enough, you can kind of flip it around. It doesn't really matter. The colour possibilities with this sweater are really endless. I feel like a blue and green version of this would look so cool. So I feel like that's the one that I want to do next. It probably won't be for a little while just because I have so many other projects that I want to do, and I already have one. But when I want to do a new one in another colour palette, that is definitely the one that I'll end up choosing. But yeah, here's a little kind of close-up of the a sweater. I think it looks so good. I am really pleased with how this has turned out. In terms of like a pattern review, I really enjoyed this pattern. I think it was very well written. I would personally give this pattern a 9 out of 10. My only very small, and what is not making it a 10 out of 10 piece of feedback, I guess, is that when I was reading the charts, I think I mentioned it before already, but the kind of where I've done the hot pink on their chart was the lighter purple, and on the chart it was a little bit difficult to read in terms of being able to see each individual square, aka each individual stitch. So personally I found that a little bit difficult. I at the beginning thought it was because of my printer, but when I was even kind of looking at it on my laptop, I did struggle to kind of count in between each one, because on the grid it's basically a white line that divides each square, aka each stitch. So having a lighter color contrasting with the white line made it a little bit more difficult to be able to kind of count across how many stitches I needed to do. It was a very minor problem, I would say. You know, I did it, I was still able to do it, but I think if you maybe have like visual impairments or anything like that, you may struggle with the reading of the chart itself. I personally would have loved a link to Stitch Fiddle, or maybe like a different color version, so maybe like a more contrasting color on the actual flame part. I think that would have been super helpful. But other than that, this was a really great pattern. It was very size inclusive. The chart went up to 100 stitches, which I think would probably reach maybe about a 5XL if you were using a Aran weight yarn similar to me. The sleeves, like I mentioned, they only went down, the tapestry part of it was 50 stitches around, but because we're doing the kind of flame on the bottom part of the sleeve, I actually don't think that would be any problem. So even if you have larger arms than me, or if you want really oversized baggy sleeves, I feel like you will be okay with the sleeve part as well. So in terms of size inclusivity, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. The pattern itself was also really easy to read in terms of the instructions. So visually it was very easy to read. They weren't kind of using any awkward fonts, or it wasn't like handwriting fonts. It was just in a normal text on a white background in a black font. So very easy to visually read the instructions, and the instructions themselves I felt were very simple to follow as well. I would definitely recommend this pattern if this is going to be your first tapestry crochet project. I don't know if I would recommend it if this is your first ever wearable project, just because I think doing tapestry as your first wearable, it does complicate things a little bit. So I don't think I would recommend it as like a beginner project in general, but I would definitely recommend it as a beginner tapestry project. I feel like for me personally, having a little bit of knowledge about garment construction and the way you kind of put together a sweater, working in the round, doing ribbing, that sort of thing, that really helped me, because I could kind of like freestyle a little bit easier when it came to actually doing the sweater. One thing I actually really rated about this pattern is that there was no hand holding, and I mean that as a positive thing. I think a lot of the time people, when they buy a crochet pattern, they expect it to have a video tutorial, have a million pictures to go with it, and be explained in a way that like everybody is going to understand, which is just physically impossible to create a pattern like that. And so the thing that I really liked about this is that it wasn't particularly wordy. There wasn't any accompanying photos or kind of extra instructions on how to, like, you know, join in the round and where to put your stitches in. And I actually really liked that, and I appreciated that, because it just made the pattern flow a little bit easier. So for me, the no hand holding was a good thing. This is why I don't think that this pattern would necessarily be great if this is your first ever crochet garment or your first ever crochet sweater. But yeah, that is something that I think is a good thing about this pattern. Some people will probably disagree with me, and that is okay, but I do think, particularly when it comes to written patterns, there is this kind of like expectation that everything should come with visual accompaniments, which it's a written pattern, it absolutely doesn't have to, and there should be no expectation of that, basically. So that's something I really liked. I really rated it, and I found it simpler to follow because it wasn't super wordy and it wasn't kind of overcomplicating things in that sense. But yeah, those are my kind of final thoughts on the On Fire sweater pattern by Made in the Moment. I had a great time crocheting this. I think once I kind of got over the whole I hate counting and I don't want to count all the time thing, and just like adjusted my mindset as I was crocheting this, I honestly had a lot of fun. And like I said, it was a really easy pattern for me to follow. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Obviously I did take a few kind of liberties with it because I am quite familiar with garment construction, so I did a few amendments which, as you can see, I don't think have negatively affected the final result of the pattern. So I feel like it's a really good one if you do want to make those adjustments yourself and you do want to kind of just like freestyle it a little bit, but you just maybe want like the chart from the pattern. But yeah, overall very positive experience. I really loved this pattern. I would definitely make another one. I would definitely recommend it. So yeah, thanks so much for hanging out with me whilst I crocheted the On Fire sweater. I will put a link to the pattern in the description in case you want to crochet your own. You can also just go to Made in the Moment socials and their website. You'll be able to find all of their patterns, including this one over there. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a little like, leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and of course subscribe to my channel as well. I have a lot of vlogs if you want to catch up on some of my previous projects. I would love to connect with you guys. My @s are in the description below, but you can find me on TikTok and on Instagram at NotHalfBadCrochet. And yeah, thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I will hopefully catch you on the next video.